All right, welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming on time. Hope you're as excited as I am to get continued here with our series. We've started the series already. It's going. We now have 15 different careers that we've covered. Our goal is we want to cover 30 different careers, popular careers that are obtainable, and there are people in our community that are already doing it, and they're here to share their journey. So again, this is Rabbi Wordy from JobMap CHYE. And tonight, I'm excited, we're going to be presenting to you all about the world of EMT. And with us tonight to share that is actually a good friend, somebody who I know now for probably 25 years. I remember the Fabrengens in his home, and just live a few blocks from each other. And I watched Yehuda Schaefer go from a young man and become an adult, and he's become an experienced EMT, very accomplished in the field, and he's here tonight to share with us what it's like to be an EMT and the whole world of EMT, paramedic, and so on and so forth. So Yehuda, please join us. Your camera's
I'm here. I'm seeing my video working.
We hear you.
All right.
And now we see you. There you are. Welcome, and thank you very much. I really want to thank you. I know we were supposed to do this before Pesach, but it worked out finally tonight, Baruch Hashem. So everybody, let's welcome Yehuda. And Yehuda, why don't you tell, the way we like to do this is we like to take people, share the journey. So tell us a little bit, like, how did you become an EMT? You grew up, you went through the yeshiva system. What attracted you to the world of EMT?
So, the journey wasn't that much of a journey for EMT, and that's true kind of about the career. I've looked at some of the other careers that have been posted on the site and in the series, and a lot of them take years of school and training and a big push and all that. I kind of fell into the world of EMS. I was after yeshiva and kind of at home not doing anything, and one day I decided, hey, why not take an EMT course? I wonder what an EMT course is like. And once I was EMT, I was like, yeah, I have this card. I'm a registered EMT. Might as well get a job. So I went and I got my first job that way. So I kind of fell into it. And once I was doing it, I was like, once I'm doing it, I'm here already. What would it take to be a paramedic? So a couple of years later, I became a paramedic, and I've been doing it ever since. So the journey I wouldn't say it's a very inspiring journey, but I will say that once, now that I'm in it, I love it. I love what I do.
Nice. Okay, so again, the purpose of these sessions is to give people a window into what the career is like and how to obtain it. So first things first, how hard was it to get training for EMT? How did you do that?
So EMT training is actually pretty simple. It's not hard at all. I don't know if they even require a high school diploma at this point. I know for a paramedic, officially, you need a high school diploma. But for EMT, I don't know if you even need that. It's a course that a few hundred hours of classroom work, maybe 100 or 200 hours of classroom work. I'm not sure exactly. They do all kinds of courses. They do crash courses where you're done in 3 weeks. Ben Azmanim courses they have. They have night courses where it takes 6 months, but you're only doing one night a week for a couple hours. They have all kinds of courses. It's not terribly hard to become an EMT. It's actually a pretty easy, pretty straightforward. It's very easy to get into.
Okay. And what type of person would enjoy becoming an EMT?
What type of person would enjoy becoming EMT? Well, I don't know how to answer that, but when you I became an EMT with no plans to actually work in the field. That came afterwards, right afterwards, but that came afterwards. If you're EMT, a lot of people get into it just because I know many people who just took the course because they want to know what to do if they, encounter someone. They maybe could help somebody just without any plans to do anything more with it, just basic medical knowledge, what to do in case of an emergency. So that's one reason why a lot of people get into it, and that really applies to anybody. If you plan to actually do something, other people do it for, let's say, camp, to get a camp job or something like that. So there again, you're not expecting to use it that much. You're expecting more to give out Band-Aids, but you still got to know what to do in case of an emergency. If you are thinking of doing it as a career or as a volunteer and actually do it. So then most of the things that we do are not that crazy, are not that exciting, but when you're in the field, either as a volunteer or or working, anything could happen. You come to work every day, or you carry your radio every day, and anything could happen at any minute when you're on call. It could be giving out band-aids. It could be, the worst possible thing. So it's hard to know who's it. If you can't stand the sight of blood, if you can't stand the sight of vomit, then probably shouldn't be doing that. You should be able to, there's some physical requirements, and you got to be able to move somebody. That's kind of important. And you got to kind of get along with people. If you're not getting along with people, then you probably shouldn't be doing this.
Okay, now you spoke about EMT, then there's also paramedic. How much harder is it to go from being an EMT to becoming a paramedic? That's like a higher certification, right?
So in the world of EMS, in the ambulance system in New York City, anyway, in the country, it's a little different. There's a lot of different levels, but in New York, there's 2 levels of people who are on ambulances. There's EMTs and paramedics. That's it. There's nothing less than EMT. Other places, they have emergency drivers. We don't have that in New York. They have all kinds of levels in between EMT and paramedic. We don't have that in New York. In New York City, we have EMTs and paramedics. EMTs, like I said, is very easy to get into. The course is very straightforward. Yeah, you gotta, when you're doing it, you gotta learn stuff if you never learned it before. So you gotta do it, but it's very easy. It's really not hard. And again, that course could be, I think it's a couple hundred hours for the whole course, and you could do it in a few weeks. There's, crash courses that do it in a few weeks. Paramedic is much more serious. There's much more responsibility. There's much more you could do with it. And that takes a year. That's a year of school. That's a year of school.
A year of a full day or a year of night school?
No, so it's a year of school. It takes a year pretty much. And again, there's different programs right now that they have. They have online programs. They have programs, college credit programs, which take 2 or 3 years. They have night programs that also take 2 years or whatnot. But the quickest program pretty much is going to be a year. It would be a couple of days a week in class and another couple of days a week doing rotations. You spend a lot of time in hospitals, a lot of time in ambulances. For an EMT, I think you have to do 1 rotation. You got to do 1 shift on an ambulance. For a paramedic, you do hundreds of hours on ambulances and the emergency room and all kinds of other medical places. A lot of rotations.
Why would someone choose to be a paramedic over an EMT? Like, what's the motivating factor? It's different roles. Like, tell us the difference between being an EMT and being a paramedic.
An EMT is the most basic. If you're going to go into the healthcare world, an EMT is the most basic healthcare provider. Anything other than an EMT, I mean, there are first aid courses, but an EMT is the first place in the medical field where they'll teach you how to do medical assessment, which is the same exact thing that a doctor does. The only difference, a doctor has way more knowledge, way more tools, way more things they could think about, way more things they could do about it. And an EMT, it's very, very basic, but it is the same foundation. The EMT is the foundation of that. That's the first thing. So if you're getting into healthcare, EMT is a great place to get your toes wet and see what it's all about. Because really, anything else that you do in medicine, you learned in EMT school on the most basic level. A paramedic it's a lot more serious. So a EMT, I think, could help administer 3 or 4 different medications. Paramedics have like 50 medications in their bag. There's electrical therapy. There's all kinds of other things that paramedics do. And on the pay scale, it's also pay is a third to double what an EMT gets usually. That's usually.
So, since you're bringing that up, and that's actually one of the questions in terms of salary and income. So, an EMT, an annual salary of an EMT is in what range?
I can't tell you the annual salary, but I was doing a little bit of research just before I came on, and it seems for an EMT right out of school that have no job experience and nothing, like just took an EMT course, shows up with a driver's license and the EMT card at one of the local ambulance companies. So I made a couple of phone calls, and the rate is in between $15 and $20, depending on where you go and who you talk to. That would be $20 per hour, $15 to $20 an hour. as it would be the starting pay for an EMT. I'm not sure what that translates to in a year, but
not in the close to $30,000. Okay, and where does it climb to? How high can it go as an
as the
EMT?
as the EMT, so we'll go up to, it could go up to 25, maybe 30 would be the high limit. There are some hospitals I think that pay a little bit more, but they're hard to get into. But yeah, it's not like a get rich quick thing by any. It's a job, it's work. It's not particularly hard work most of the time, but yeah, that's the pay is usually by the hour, not by salary, and that's what the starting would be around, somewhere in between 15 and 20. I think it's closer to the 20 range right now. $20 an hour for a brand new EMT, right out of school.
Nice. Okay, and then if you become a paramedic, then
so paramedic now, I didn't do a lot of research, but it seems somewhere around $30-$35 an hour would be the starting.
okay,
Again, depending on where you are.
and it climbs up to.
It's hard to say. It really depends who you're working for, how long you're working, and all that. And the truth is, all these numbers, even these numbers, just changed recently. It was a big jump. When I started, I think I started at $11 an hour. I think when I started doing this
As an EMT.
as an EMT, yeah. As a paramedic, I think my first job as a paramedic, I think I was getting like $17 or $18 an hour when I first became a paramedic.
Okay.
So yeah, recently there was a kind of a jump more recently.
Okay. Understood. So talk a little bit about a day in the life of, if you're going to be an EMT or paramedic, like what's the hours? What does it look like, as a time commitment and lifestyle?
Most places you're going to work are shifts. You're working shifts. Either you have a schedule or per diem, or you kind of pick up shifts as you go along. There's it's a kind of job that needs people on 24 hours a day. So there's nights, weekends, all that. There's always ambulances out there.
So you can't have steady. If you're sitting those shifts, that means you could end up with some days, some nights.
No, that's not. No, you could have steady. You could definitely have steady. I personally work nights. I work 6 to 6, 3 nights a week. That's my steady. That's my steady job.
And as a paramedic, you're always attached to an ambulance. Is that?
Yes. So in New York City, again, this works a little different in other places, but in New York City, I think everybody, I don't know if anybody does this differently. You show up for your shift, a day in the life of EMT. You show up for your shift. You try a couple of minutes early. You have to check your equipment, make sure you have everything that you need to get out there. Again, different garages and different places, do that a little bit differently, but the basics is all the same. You're responsible to make sure you have everything that you need on your ambulance. If that means picking up from the office, or they leave everything on the ambulance, or whatever it is, make sure you're gassed up, make sure you have all your equipment, make sure you have your uniform and everything, all your personal things that you need, your ID and all that. And they usually will send you, they'll send you to basically the way it works is, yes, your ambulance is your office for your shift. Shifts are usually between 8 and 10 hours, 8 and 12 hours. That's the normal shifts. In this life, most people, especially people who work 8 hours, it's very, very common to do double shifts. So I say 8 to 12 hours.
Double means back to back, 8 hours, and then plus 8 hours.
Yeah, so 16 hours, very, very, very common thing for people who are working 8-hour shifts. To punch them up and do 2 16-hour shifts instead of 4 8-hour shifts.
They let you take naps in the middle,
some places, most places, if you could sleep where you are, they don't care as long as you answer the radio and they call you. There are some places that are very strict about no sleeping, but I actually only know one place like that. Most places, it's very common. Go in the middle of the night and look at an ambulance parked at a corner. You'll probably see a couple of guys trying to sleep in the front seat if they're not doing anything.
So and again, talking about a day in the life of an ambulance. So out of an 8-hour shift on an average day, most of the, you just have to be on call and you're just sitting and waiting.
So you once you're ready, you leave your base or you leave wherever you're going, you'll go to what's called a post, wherever they tell you to be. If you're working 911, it will be a set place that you're going to sit at. If you're working for private companies, then they'll give you one of, they'll have their locations where they want you and they could switch it around based on their needs. And you go over there and you wait for a call, and calls could be from anywhere. So if your place to sit is Kingston and Eastern Parkway, doesn't mean you're getting calls into Kingston, Eastern Parkway. You get calls Depending on who you're working for, you get calls in the Bronx, Staten Island, or the end tip of Long Island in there, you know. Yeah, so you basically, like I said, you're in your ambulance for your shift. We don't really work out of bases or anything like that. I mean, we show up to base to get our ambulance, but once you're out for your shift, and you respond to calls as they come in. There's no rule of how busy or how not busy you could be. You could come to work, and as soon as you get out of the base, they give you a job before you even, park anywhere. And then as soon as you're done that job, they'll give you the next job all the way to the end of your shift. You could come to the base one day, go sit at your spot for the next 8 hours, and come back to base without having answered the radio once. There's, goes both ways. You never know what you're gonna have.
Understood. Now, how does it work in terms of the Jewish lifestyle? The companies are accommodating to Shabbos and Yom Tif.
A lot of the companies are actually Jewish owned, but even if not, yeah, everybody's accommodating. The hospital, in some places, if you're working for the fire department, let's say, then it's kind of your responsibility to switch with other people, find other people to switch your shift with, split your shifts with, like switch, so that you're only working weekdays. A lot of places have regular schedules. I have a regular schedule. I don't have to worry about Shabbos. When it comes to Yom Tif, take my vacation, no problem. Other places do have a roving schedule. So first week you're working Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and next week Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on. And if you're working that kind of job, then yeah, when it comes to Friday Shabbos, you have to find somebody else who will kind of mirror what you want. So they say like, listen, I don't mind working Shabbos. I never want to work Sunday. So you'll always work Sunday. They'll always work your Shabbos or something like that. It's very common. A lot of from people in this field, a lot of them have those kind of jobs in those kind of garages, and they figure it out. It's not, most people are able to do it.
Now, is there anywhere to climb from, like after above paramedic? Is there a way if someone is ambitious and they, especially if they want to earn more money, is there a ladder to climb?
So kind of yes, if you're very committed and you're very motivated and you really want something out of it. But the real answer is no. This is not a job not a job you're going to get rich with. I will tell you, this is a great job, especially EMT and maybe even paramedic. If you're going to school to be a doctor, you're going to school for something else, and you could find a quiet company to be at that, you'll have a lot of those days where they'll just send you to sit on a street corner and, you have time to study. Great for that if you're working on something else. To save up for to buy a house, not really the best job for that. Depending on where you work, the pay gets a little bit better. Doesn't get great, never gets great. There are a few places that really pay well, but very hard to get those jobs. And as far as climbing, there's always, like in anywhere else, you could climb into management. But yeah, I wouldn't know anything about that. But yeah, so there is some potential, not a lot though.
Understood. And it's totally a side question. I mean, how does it work? And to join Hatzalah, I know that's a volunteer thing, but so anyone with an EMT or paramedic has the right to join Hatzalah. How does that?
Anybody with an EMT or paramedic has the right to apply for Hatzalah. Joining is a different. They accept people based on the needs, based on if they need more people, based on availability, based on location, based on reputation, all kinds of things.
But so again, if someone just wanted to volunteer for Hatzalah, if they got an EMT, technically they could volunteer, or Hatzalah has requirements.
You need to have an EMT. You need to at least be an EMT to volunteer for Hatzalah. I don't think they accept anybody without EMT. But just because you are an EMT, depending on where you live, what neighborhood, some need every person they could get. Others just have stacks of applications, and they're not accepting anybody. So that really depends on the specific place where you're living.
Got it. Okay, so going back to before, so from paramedic, there's no like gateway to moving into a doctor's office. Like I said, it's not.
So there was at one point a kind of bridge program from paramedic to nurse. I don't know if that's still going on. And even then, it wasn't anything very. The few people that I know that did it weren't so excited about it. If you're going to be a nurse, go to school for nursing and become a nurse. It pays way better than a paramedic. Much easier to get a job, much better pay, but it's a different job. I love what I do. I would not like being a nurse. I love what I do. I don't think I could ever be a doctor, but what I do, I like what I do. Um, uh, to yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. I would say, just as a final thought on this matter, are there any particular established, well-known places, like if someone said, "Hey, I want to take training in EMT or paramedic," would you recommend certain places where to send people? Where
I
what
can't
schools or?
recommend. I can't recommend because I don't really. I don't really know what's out there. I know the most common place that Crown Heights go to. People from Crown Heights will go to emergency care. That's very common. And I'll give a little shout out to Elio Davis. He's actually somebody in Crown Heights who does EMT courses. I believe through emergency care. I could be wrong, but yes, that's somebody local who provides EMT courses.
Very nice. Okay, so look, we've covered all the bases here in terms of the journey. Just for dramatic purposes, what was your most in terms of all the experiences you've had as a paramedic, which incident gives you the most satisfaction you're proud of?
I'll tell you something about it. I won't directly answer your question, but I'll tell you something about it. The first day in EMT school, the instructor told us one thing. He says, when you come somewhere, when you get called for a job, just a side note, in Hatzalah we call them calls. In the EMS world, in the paid EMS world, it's called jobs. You get jobs. You don't get calls, you get jobs. When you come to a job and you're sitting with somebody, you got to keep something in mind. You're not having a bad day. Whatever's going on, it could be terrible. And it could be, you're not having a bad day. They're having a bad day. What could you do about it? What could you do to make their bad day a little bit better? And I think that's really what it's all about. Like I come to somewhere and, it could be, sometimes it's something stupid. Sometimes it's something really serious. I have very limited amount of things that I could do. As the EMT and paramedic, our primary role is get somebody to a hospital safely. If we could help them a little bit along the way, we'll do whatever we can. And, there's a lot of stuff that we can do. But really, the real care for most things is going to happen in the hospital. So during that interaction, during that, 10, 20 minutes, an hour that we're with a person, what can we do to make their bad day a little bit better? And there's a lot of satisfaction in that. I mean, a lot of it is not satisfying. A lot of it, I had somebody call 911 on me while they're in my ambulance because they didn't like what I was telling them or something. And I actually called 911. They're like, hey, we're in a 911 ambulance, but I don't like the way the guy's treating me. So that's not very, very fun. But a lot of times, yeah, when you're with somebody and they're having that terrible day and you're able to make that terrible day for them just a little bit better, just provide them with a little bit of comfort. And of course, there's care also. There's the medical help that we're giving also. That's very satisfying. It's very, that's very satisfying.
Thank you. Very well said. Okay, so before we sign off, we have some participants here that are with us. If anyone has any particular questions they'd like to ask, you could type them in the chat and I will ask them of Yehuda to respond. Anyone that's on us with us right now wants to post any questions? Okay. Yes, one person just asked, have you ever experienced any anti-Semitism?
I work 3 nights a week in a very in the projects. So yeah, not a lot, but yeah. And most of the time it's coming from that. What I told you is a great example of that. She got on the phone and said, I have 2 Jewish people here who are, being racist. That was just straight up. That's what that was. But it doesn't happen a lot. The most time that's not what I encounter. And yeah, I work with a lot of, probably primarily most of my patients at work are probably Black. I mean, that's just the area where I work in, the projects a lot. And I don't experience it a lot, but yeah, it does happen. As far as workplaces, there are some places that have kind of a reputation. Not where I work. Where I work is a Jewish-owned company. But there are some garages, we call it, that do kind of have a reputation of not liking, I don't know if Jewish people or from people. Yeah, so it does exist, but I have not encountered a lot of it.
Okay, here's a final question. Family life and being an EMT, how challenging is it?
The way I do it, Well, for some people, it works perfectly. I mean, there's no time to fight. My wife comes home from work, I go to work. So there's that. But you could have you could get a schedule, all day schedule, and you're going to work like you're going anywhere else. It's very, what is important is that there are stressful days. There are times we encounter things, like I said, you never know what you're going to encounter. And, there are things that you encounter that you take home with you. It's hard. There are stressful things. There are days that don't go well. And as much as I like to say, yeah, they're having a bad day, not you, but you're part of it. And you can't always separate that. And you just have to know how to deal with it and not bring it home and not make it an issue. Schedule wise, most places, if you wanted a job that only works, you're only working days and certain hours, so you're home, however, that's doable. I mean, there's plenty of EMT jobs, and that is doable. Stress wise, like a lot of other stressful jobs, you have to, be honest with yourself and, be careful of that.
Okay. All right. So this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you very much, Yehuda. Thank you, everybody that joined. For all of you that are watching live, God willing, this series is going to continue. Generally, it's every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock live on COL or through Zoom. Next week, Wednesday night, will be Lag BaOmer. So next week, we're actually going to be doing it Tuesday night, and we'll be sending out the emails and the messages with the upcoming career paths that we're going to discuss. I want to wish all of you have a wonderful week, and of course, for all of you that are watching this that need guidance on career guidance or job placement support, please reach out to us. Take care. Thank you very much, Yehuda.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. And I got to say, there's a lot of tzedakah that's done in Crown Heights, but I've told you this before in person, that we all know the biggest tzedakah, the best thing you could do for somebody is not give them a handout, but give them a career, give them something to do. And I love what you're doing. I love what you do with your organization in general, and this career thing, trying to get people jobs. It's the best thing we could do for people. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll be in touch. Take care.